friends, and welcome to another Three Girls, One Monthly Catch Up, where Sarah, Heather, and I are going to be talking to you about what we did last month in March. So, we will leave the timestamps for each of the categories we will be discussing in the description box below. So, let us, without further ado, get started with our first topic, which is tarot and oracle. And Heather will be going first. So, Heather, what decks did you use in March?
I did. I swapped around a bit with decks in March, but I'm only going to talk about a couple because some of them I've talked about so many times before that nobody wants to hear me talk about them again.
Mhm.
So because you both mentioned it, I think in our last live or our last catch up, I did end up getting out my cat tarot
Oh,
in March and using this. So but I'm sure people have seen images by now because you both showed them recently. But I had a really good time with this deck actually. Like it
well,
didn't blow me away, but there was nothing I didn't dislike about it either.
mhm,
It was just one of those decks that was just a really nice, easy, pleasant experience. It's
nice.
really easy to read because it's very RWS.
Mhm.
It's actually can't really tell which artist is which, did which card. I can't see enough of a difference to be able to
Mhm.
tell that there was 2 artists involved. It
Mhm.
does make me think a little bit of, Tower of the Magical Forest.
Mhm.
It's
Yes,
got that
I
same
can
kind
see
of
that.
thing where it's got the animals with the clothes on and stuff. It's got
Mhm.
that same sort of, like, slightly weird vibe, but with just
Mhm.
fully cats, and I really, really enjoyed it. And because it's quite muted in terms of palette, I wanted to pair it with an oracle deck that was not at all
Mhm.
muted in palette, just to see how that worked, and so I paired it with such a random choice, but I paired it with my cute and creepy oracle,
I
which
love that.
is the complete opposite. It's like it's not a neutral palette at all. It's
Yeah.
really like weird and a bit, cute and creepy, but it
Mhm.
surprisingly contrasted really well. Really, really well. And I was really blown away by how the messages just matched up so well, and I just had a really fun time. Like it was the first time in a while that I have kind of almost recaptured that I love this. I love tarot. I love all this. This is why I've got so many decks and I keep buying new decks and talking about them all the time. I had a really good time with tarot in March, like really good. And then I used my three trees tarots. I used the oak, ash, and thorn, and the oracle that I have completely forgotten the name of.
Thistledown.
The
Thistledown.
Thistledown, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I use those together for the second half of the month, and any of those decks together are a good pairing. So
Mhm.
it was fun. It was a lot of fun this month.
I'm going to be super brief because, to be perfectly honest, I did not have a great month of tarot and oracle. I had out the same decks that I had out the previous month. So that is the Little Monsters Tarot and the Wisdom of the Wild Things Oracle. But I worked with them very little, to be perfectly honest. Just I don't know. There was a lot going on, just mentally and emotionally and physically for me in March, and so I just didn't do a lot of tarot stuff. So I love these decks. I did a couple readings. I wasn't really doing daily draws or anything like that. It was just a very kind of slow month for me in terms of tarot and oracle stuff. So I really don't have a lot to contribute. If you want to see either of these decks, I showed both of them in our February monthly catch up,
Mhm.
and because I was using them that month as well, and they're both fabulous decks, but I don't really have too much to contribute because I didn't work with them a ton. So
It just goes like that though, doesn't it,
That's
sometimes? Like, I've had months in a row like that where I'm just like, I have decks out, but I barely touch them.
exactly, that's kind of where I was. I did a little bit of work with both of them, but not to the point that I can say,
Mm.
like I spent a lot of time with either of them, but I had spent a lot of time with them the prior month. So
right.
I'll get into more of like what was going on, but it just wasn't a great month for me in general. So
Speaking of Wisdom of the Wild Things, I did pull that out for the beginning of the month because Sarah was talking about it and it had me jonesing to use it again. So I did use that at the beginning of March. And I also did pull out my Tarot de la
Mhm.
Nuit. I'm not gonna show this. I've shown this so many times, but, you know, this is one of my ride or die decks. It's I just needed something that felt like it was gonna be a good time. Like, I needed that kind of levity, even though this can also be a serious deck, but, I just needed some fun, and
Mhm.
this felt like fun. So I did use this in the beginning. And then there was one point where I was fixating on wanting to use a tarot that showed high art, but I
Mm.
don't have anything like that. I mean,
Mhm.
I have Hellenic Oracle, but that's Oracle, and
Mhm.
it's based on Greek mythology. But I was like wanting a tarot specifically, and I
Mhm.
don't know why, but it was like I need like an art tarot deck,
Mhm.
and
Like an
so
art that would be in a museum, tarot deck, you mean?
yeah,
Okay,
exactly,
Mhm.
gotcha.
exactly. And so, you know, of course, I was like looking online, and I thought about the Klimt tarot, and I thought about the Botticelli, but there were just certain cards that just really didn't do it for me, and enough of them that I'm just like,
Mhm.
I'm not so sure about these. And then, interestingly, I fell upon the and opted for the Touchstone tarot.
See, I knew this was coming, so I've been, like, trying to pretend like I didn't know this was coming, but it was.
It's so funny because like I purposely didn't tell Sarah because I wanted to surprise her, and I was just like, well, if she doesn't see it in like this one video, it'd be funny to catch her like reaction in like a recorded like three girls.
And then I saw it in the
Um,
other video and was like, "You've been using the touchstone and you didn't tell me? How very dare you?" I was very
yes,
surprised.
yes, I opted for this, and actually, I did go ahead after I knew that this was going to be a keeper. Because I obviously wasn't going to put the effort into modding it if I didn't like it.
Mhm.
But because it's a huge ass deck.
Big. Yeah.
And so I knew it was gonna continue to piss me off if, like, it remained that huge.
Mhm.
So once I decided, "No, for the time being, this is a keeper, this is gonna stay," I did go ahead and, like, mod it. So I went ahead and, like, trimmed down this, like, brown border. So,
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
this is, like, the original
Yeah.
border, and
Mhm.
this is what I trimmed it down to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I do think it does help with handling it. It looks much better. And then I just went ahead and edged it in like a metallic. So yeah, I opted for this one. And it was so interesting to me, like because you know, in all the times Sarah has been like praising this deck and going on and on. Like you've seen my and Heather's reaction, right? Like
Yeah.
we've all been like,
Zero interest.
like we're
Zero
like,
interest.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. We love that for you, Sarah. We love that so
Oh,
much for you.
We love
Um,
that you love it.
we love that you love it. I don't I had no interest, no interest. Um, but what was it that really drew me to this? It was I think it was the Queen of Wands,
oh, the
maybe?
Queen of Wands is always fabulous in a cat
Yeah.
black deck. Like, yeah, she's beautiful in this deck.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I really like
Mhm.
her. I really, really like her." Um, and so I was like, "Well, I mean, why not? I mean, I'll never know until I actually have it in my hands." And Sarah has just given it so much praise. And so I decided to give it a shot. And this is like my Harry Potter deck.
Mm, mhm.
And like this is like me being in Hogwarts, right?
Oh, okay. Mhm.
Amidst all the paintings where the characters have come to life. You know what I mean?
Okay,
And
I'm with you now. Like
Yeah.
I'm going
yeah,
Harry Potter
right?
deck
This is
in
yeah,
Hogwarts. I am not following this train of thought
it
at
is
all.
these are the paintings in Hogwarts where the characters are alive and they're like either being very friendly towards you or they're like screaming at you or
Julie, are
taunting
you
you.
trying to tell us that the cards are actually talking to you? Because we need to have a whole different conversation.
In a way, it is like you know, and Sarah has talked about this before, like they're direct, a lot of these direct gazes, it
Mhm.
does feel like they are very much having this very direct connection with you.
Mm.
Mhm.
And so some of them do feel like they are connecting with me in a more friendly way. And then some of them like feel like they're flat out mocking me. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel like it is very much like those paintings in Hogwarts. There's no perfect deck. And so there are definitely images in here that I don't get on with. But overall, I really did enjoy this deck and I used it for the remainder of the month.
Mhm.
That's how much honestly, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. And I ended up, speaking of the Hellenic Oracle, I did pair it with the Hellenic Oracle.
Mhm.
Of course, those two together, beautiful, beautiful
Mhm.
aesthetically. And then also the Citadel, which I've shown before.
Mhm. Mhm.
This might seem like, once again, an odd choice, but like it really worked together.
Yeah, I
Like they
can see.
worked
Mhm.
together. And it wasn't necessarily that I intended them to be like a dedicated pair. I was just going to work with this, have that, just kind of be separate, but like
Mhm.
they really befriended each other. Like they were so great together,
Mhm.
honestly. Like this deck too. I love it. So versatile. Just friends
Mm.
with everybody.
Mhm.
Like honestly, love it.
Okay, I just have to say that I love that you had that experience with the touchstone specifically because I think for a lot of people, they look at a deck like the touchstone that uses that type of art, and a lot of those decks, they can sometimes feel very distancing, like it's like you're looking at a painting, you're not, communicating with a character necessarily, or you're not, but that's one of the reasons that I love the touchstone so much is that I genuinely feel a connection to the people in the pictures. Like, and I have like very specific relationships with some of like the Knight of Swords in the Touchstone Tarot. I fucking hate that guy. Like he and I are just are like, I mean, I every time he turns up, I'm like, why are you here? But it's like a
My God,
very,
yes.
you just have a very personal relationship with all of those people, and they are looking like directly into your soul
Directly at you.
sometimes, and
Yes,
you're like telling you like, and the ones that
yes,
feel like friends still feel like the kind of friend who are gonna call you out on your shit,
yes,
you know?
yes, very much.
So that's why I love it. It genuinely feels like a very close connection with all of those people. So it
Yeah,
doesn't feel distant at all somehow.
yeah, I agree, and, like, a similar experience, 8 of Pentacles man, that dude he was exactly, it
The
was
way
just like,
he's
mhm. It was like,
Mhm, yeah. I see you not
"No."
doing your work. Like, I'm looking over my shoulder here and I see you not doing your work.
Basically, it was
Like,
just like,
yeah.
you
Mhm.
know."
Yeah.
So, on to our next category, which is books. Heather.
So I read quite a lot in March, but I'm only going to talk about like 3 of the books I read and probably very briefly. But so I read Funny Story by Emily Henry in
Mm,
March,
mhm,
which means I think I've now read them all apart from the one that comes out this year or has just
mhm,
come out this year.
mhm,
But I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. I
mhm.
think that I can't remember characters' names in any books ever.
Yeah.
It's a but then I can't remember people's names in real life, so it's just
Yeah.
a problem that I have with names in general. But I think the male character in Funny Story was actually my favorite of all
Mhm,
of the men she's written in all of her books. I really, really found him incredibly likable.
mhm,
Um, and the setup, I was like, so Sarah's talked about this before, but the setup is that this woman, the main female character, she's moved to this town in, where are they, Sarah? Minnesota? No?
Weren't they in Michigan?
Oh, Michigan, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm,
And she's moved there with her fiance, and he goes off to his bachelor party and comes back and tells her that he is leaving her for his best friend, who's a woman. And he owns the house that they live in, and she has to move. They're going away for a week, and she's got a week to move out. And she ends up moving in with his best friend's ex-boyfriend, and they're obviously the main couple. But it was so much more than a romance.
mhm,
Emily Henley does that quite well anyway, I
mhm,
think, but this one particularly so was so much more than just a romance. It was
yes.
it was just so well done. I had a really good time. I still think Book Lovers is probably my favorite, and that might just be because it was the one I read first.
Mm, mhm,
But this is way up there. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I also read Quicksilver. Like, I
mm,
started Quicksilver in February, but I actually finished it in March. And I have never, ever felt more confused about my own feelings towards a book in my entire life. I knew way before I got to the end that I would be picking up the next in the trilogy,
Mm,
is I'm that invested in the actual story,
mhm,
but I wasn't loving the relationships. This is
mhm,
a romantasy about a girl who gets transported to the Fae world, and there's a Fae who hates her, and it's enemies to lovers, and that doesn't really work for me because he was
mhm,
vile. Like, he
mhm,
was really horrible to her in the beginning, and then I was like, "And now what? And now I'm supposed to just root for this couple?"
mhm,
I really think that she should be running very quickly in the opposite direction, except she's got nowhere to go. But it just didn't really work for me, and the the whole romance made no sense. It
mhm,
made like it. I think I'm learning that I like a slow burn, and I like it to make sense. This was not for an enemies to lovers. You would expect it to be slower,
mhm.
but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And there was no chemistry and no build up. Like, they were hating each other, and then they were kissing each other, and it was like that. How? But nothing happened in the middle to go from here to here. I don't get it. I don't get it. It was not working for me. But the plot and the fantasy elements I loved.
Mhm, mhm,
So I'm confused about my feelings towards that book. And I'm also confused about my feelings towards romantasy as a genre in
mhm,
general, which is annoying because now I have to read more to figure out how I feel about it. And then I read The Buffalo Hunter Hunter,
mm,
which
mhm,
is Stephen Graham Jones's
mhm.
newest book. Julie, I thought of you when I was reading this book, although it is quite graphic and there is animal violence in there, so you wouldn't actually like it. But it is a vampire story. It's this Native American vampire and called Good Stab, and he comes to this. So it starts in modern day, and they find this diary of this Lutheran priest,
Mhm,
and he's writing about this guy who's coming to him, this Native American who's coming to him to give him his confession,
mm,
and it's absolutely my kind of horror. It's really slow. The build up is really slow.
mhm,
It's really uncomfortable,
mhm,
and it just, things are not good, but it's just like it just really messes with your brain, and you're not really sure exactly what's going on. And that was so good. I didn't love the end. The end was just got a little bit too weird for me. I can do
mhm,
weird horror, but only to a point.
mhm,
And it did get a little bit too weird for me by the end, but it was very, very well done. And it's all based around a real massacre that happened as
mm,
well. So all of that, like, actual history that underlies this story made it even more uncomfortable. It's a
Mm.
really hard read,
oh,
really, really hard read, but it was still a 5 star for me.
I had a terrible tarot month in March, but I had a great reading month because I think I just needed escapism, and I read some books that I really, really enjoyed. So one of them Heather has already talked about in our wrap-ups, which is The Dead Cattail Assassins by P. Jelly Clark, and it's if he does not write more stories in that world, I will be so disappointed because it's that book is a standalone, but I think the world building is so fun.
Mhm.
And the characters are so fun. And it's a story about this guild of assassins who are all they're all dead people who have made a deal with this goddess of assassins to after they die become one of her assassin servants basically and when they get sent on a mission like they have to complete the mission like it's like a religious they have to do it and so this one assassin who's our main character and they have no memory of their life before they died so and they're not like zombies necessarily like they're people but they are dead so I don't know it's kind of hard to explain but so she gets sent of course on a mission to assassinate somebody who it turns out I'm not going to go into the reason why because it's kind of a spoiler but she really does not want to actually kill this person and so it takes place over the course of a night where she's trying to figure out like how she got sent to kill this person and why and what has gone into setting her up in this situation where she needs to kill this person so it was just it was a super fun read it sounds really dark when you describe it but from when you're reading it it's fun like it's a fun
Mhm.
read the characters are fun, the world building is fun. Like it's this festival night in this town that they are all in, and there's some mythology behind, the festival, and he goes into all of that stuff in the book, and it's just a really fun read. And like I will see it as a massive waste if he doesn't write more it set in that world, because I think it's just too good to be just one book. So I really, really enjoyed that one. And then the other book that I read that I really enjoyed was Piranesi by Susanna Clark. And Susanna Clark is the author of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Like she has not written very many books, but the books that she does write, they tend to be kind of big. But Piranesi was just like a really, really fascinating book. And it's one of those books that just keeps you turning pages, because and I think if either of you guys read it, you will read it and you'll go, okay, I understand why this was a Sarah book, because it's a book where you get dropped into this very atmospheric setting. Our main character, it's told from the point of view of the main character's journals, and he doesn't have a name, and he doesn't know really anything about his past, and all he knows is that he lives in the house, which is his whole world, and it's this giant labyrinthine like crumbling palace almost, with that's full of all these different statues. And part of the of it's flooded with the ocean, and so like he supports himself and gets food by fishing, or like collects rainwater. And there's only one other person that he is aware of who exists, who is alive in this world, who he just calls the other. And and it basically just drops you into this setting with this guy who, for all he knows, this is his entire world. Like this is all he knows in the world. And then, shows as he gradually starts to figure out, like, wait a second, who is this other person? This is actually weird. Like, there are things that I feel like I should remember that I don't remember. Like, there are things in my journals that when I go back and read them, they don't make sense to me. Like, and it's just about him figuring out what the hell happened to him and how he got there. And it's just so good. Like, I could not put it down. Like, while I was reading it, I was just so, but this setting was so atmospheric that I think that that's a big part of like what drew me in, is like it puts you in this world, and it just is really interesting. So I really liked that book. It was really good. I read it in like 2 days because I could not put it down. So those were the main ones. I also read Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, but we'll talk about that at another time, so I won't go into it. But yeah, those were the main books that I really enjoyed in March.
Speaking of P. Jelly Clark, I read Master of Jin and really had fun with it.
Mm.
I know Sarah read it, right? Did you also read
Mhm.
that, Heather?
No, I've not read that one. I've got that as an audiobook, but I haven't read it yet.
So uh, this is like a fantasy that takes place in like Cairo,
Mhm.
early 1900s, I think,
Mhm.
and the protagonist is this young woman named Fatma, and she is an agent for this like ministry that deals in like woo magic, woo
Mm.
enchanted incidents, etc., and having to deal with all that. And so there is this murder, like this mass murder that occurs with this brotherhood. And this brotherhood is dedicated to this dude called Al Jahiz. And this man is known for, like, he's very famous, and he's known for, I think he like was able to make a connection between like the magical world and like the everyday mundane world, and kind of like connect the two and like open like a gateway or something like that. But then he disappeared, and like no one knows what happened to him. So the murderer of this brotherhood claims to be Al Jahiz come back,
Mhm.
come back to like condemn people for their corruption and immorality and all the bad things. So it's up to Fatma. She is assigned to this case, and it's up to her to figure out, yeah, who this murderer is and what's happened here. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I have to say, I actually clocked the antagonist pretty early on.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
I don't know if that's the flaw of the book or if it's just me being like on my game for once in my life. 'cause I'm never this discerning at all, but I was not even a quarter of the way through, and I'm just like, "I think I know I think I know what's going on." Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so I felt very clever when I was right. And then, the other, I read a duology, and that was, also very enjoyable, and it's, Strange the Dreamer,
Mm,
and then that's the first book, and
Mm.
then Muse of Nightmares.
mm,
So it's the duology by Laini Turner.
mm.
It's an epic fantasy. Have you 2 read
I've
these?
heard of it, but I haven't
I've
read.
Same, I've heard of it, but I haven't read them.
Mhm,
I highly recommend. I thoroughly enjoyed them. So it's about this, young, like, he's a war orphan, and he's like a junior librarian. So a librarian. His name is Laszlo Strange, and he is obsessed with this like long lost mythic city called Weep.
mhm,
And he's done so much study. He knows the history. He's learned their language. So just completely obsessed. And then this war hero named Errol Thane. And he has this nickname called the Godslayer. He arrives in Strange's city of Sosmos along with his entourage, and he wants to recruit specialized people of Zosmos to help him find this city of Weep.
mhm,
And so, of course, Laszlo is just, he really, really wants to, participate and go along, and but of course he's just considered like a junior librarian, war
mhm,
orphan, like no
mhm,
skills whatsoever, but he manages to become part of the entourage that accompanies Aerophane. And so you just kind of go along this journey to find out what actually happened to this city of Weep, what, like 200 years ago, because there were some devastating things that happened. And then also at a certain point, there's this blue-skinned goddess that starts visiting Laszlo in his dreams, and so you get to find out what's occurring there. So it was just thoroughly enjoyable. So
mhm.
I really had a lot of fun with those, and I breezed through them. On to film and TV. Heather.
So I watched a lot as well in March, actually. I had a good March. Well, I think it was because I was just shut down from the world. So
Mhm,
and I just
mhm,
did a lot at home instead. But I got on a bit of a, like, documentary kick in, March with a theme. So I started off watching Devil in the Family, which is the Ruby Frankie story. Do you 2 know about
mhm.
that? With
No, I
the
I
haven't.
So she
I
was a YouTuber, a mum, what, I don't know what they are, like mumfluencers or whatever they call
Mhm,
them, like,
mhm.
and, it turned out that she was abusing her children. She's just gone to prison for, like,
Yes.
quite seriously abusing her children. They were a Mormon family, and, her son basically managed to escape the house and
Mhm,
go to a neighbor and say, "I need you to help me. Can you drive me to the police station?" And she was involved with this other woman, YouTuber, who claimed that she was a therapist, and she was called Jodie, and it was this documentary was hard. It was really hard to watch. It made me cry, like,
mhm.
genuinely made me cry. There was door like ring footage of the boy when he turns up at the house, and it's like, oh my god, like his legs made me cry. It
Really
was
bad, yeah.
just awful. He was emaciated. It
Oh my
was
god.
so bad. It was a really interesting, like, look at how dangerous it can be, like, the drive to be online and be
Mhm,
seen as, you know, getting all these likes and all this kind of stuff, and being seen as the perfect family and stuff. There was a lot of that underneath what happened. Um, it was good. It was good, but
mhm,
I would say go into it knowing that it's tough. Another thing that really interests me is the line between religious belief and fanaticism is something I'm
mhm,
also generally quite interested in.
mhm,
And from stuff, that journals that they found and stuff, Ruby believed that her children were possessed, and she thought she was saving them. I think she genuinely did believe that,
mhm,
but it's really hard to understand when you don't share those beliefs,
mhm.
how somebody can be so manipulated into doing such horrendous things in the name of religion. I think it's interesting. And then because I was on that kind of kick of like influencer YouTubey type stuff, I then watched Scamander, was the other one I watched. She didn't have a YouTube channel, she had a blog, but this was a girl who for like 10 years, she told people that she was dying of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And people like, again, she was very religious and she was part of a big church community, one of those ones that like we have them here as well, like Kingdom Halls we call them, I think, and they have like big huge congregations and it's all light shows and music and all that kind of stuff. And but she was getting a lot of money from people. She told people she was taking pictures of herself supposedly in hospital having treatments and all this kind of stuff, and there was literally nothing wrong with her. She was not even ill. It was, the whole thing was fake. And she ended up going to prison as well. Like she knew she was scamming people, and she was so confident that when she was being investigated and found out and she'd been arrested for fraud, she went to a school as a like the head of a school and told all of them she had cancer and started getting money from them at the same time as another teacher in the school actually had cancer and was dying and did die. It was mind-blowing to watch. And then for something a bit lighter, I watched the live action version of The Little Mermaid as well, which for the most part I really, really enjoyed. I did not like the actor who played Eric at all. And I don't know how else to describe it other than it was like watching, whenever he was acting, it was like watching Amdram. Like, you know, when you go to your local amateur dramatics theatre group and they're okay, but they're not great. They're just people who like to have a go and they sound like they're reading a script. And occasionally they kind of stumble with and their characterization doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's a little bit like that. He was a little bit like your mate from up the road who's had a go at theatre. It was not good. And it was a shame because she was really good. She was fantastic. And Melissa McCarthy was also fantastic. And then the only other thing that I watched was I watched a Korean film on Netflix called Revelations. And that was a very strange film. I did what Korean films always do. And you go into it thinking you're going to watch a film about something and you end up watching an entirely different film than the film you thought you were going to watch. So this is about a girl who goes missing and a priest who believes that he's having revelations from God, and a police officer who has trauma in her past. And that's all I can tell you without giving away exactly what the film is about and what happens. It went in directions I was just not expecting. And I ended up, again, really enjoying it. It's not the best film I've seen ever, even as far as crime films go, but it was interesting. And I was like, I don't know what we're doing. What is happening? What the hell is going on? It was good. It was fun. It was good. Yeah, I would recommend trying it, but go into it without looking into it in any more detail.
Again, TV and movies, for me, it was all about pure escapism in March. So aside from rewatching Wicked, because it's on streaming. So I rewatched Wicked on streaming, but we've already talked about how we feel about that movie. Loved it, obviously. Beyond that, I literally spent the entire month watching BTS stuff, like just BTS stuff. One of them is on tour right now, and so he had multiple of his shows live streamed. So there was that. There were unofficial streams, obviously, of the other shows. So I was watching those. I finally caught up on all the Run BTS episodes that I had been saving as my emergency break glass in case of severe depression. Run BTS episodes, because they're coming back in 2 months. So I don't need to save those anymore. I've been watching Run Jin. I rewatched American Hustle Life. I've been rewatching Rise of Bangtan. It's been all BTS all the time. That's all I've been watching. That's it.
I had a hard time getting into anything when it came to TV and film. I would try to start something and then I just could not commit. Like I tried the second season of the He-Man reboot from
Mm.
Kevin Smith, Masters of the Universe Revelations, and like I just couldn't get into that. Matt and I tried a few anime shows, and we just kind of sloughed off there. I did manage to finish Over the Garden Wall, and so that that was fun and I enjoyed it. Weird, but I
So
enjoyed
weird.
it. So
It's
weird.
so weird, but it's wonderful in its
Yeah.
weirdness.
Yeah, and they're like short episodes. So
Mhm,
it was just like nice and bite-sized weirdness
mhm.
that, it's just like, "Oh, this is perplexing, but, let's go with it." So
Yeah.
that was a good time. Um, but then other than that, I couldn't, uh speaking of BTS, I had J-Hope's, music video Mona Lisa on repeat, and that's all I can remember of March. Legit. I can't remember anything else that I've really finished watching in
Mhm,
March. So
mhm.
hopefully, maybe April will be better. We're on to our final category, which is the wild card. Any general updates, hobbies, or whatever else we'd like to share? Anything is game. Heather.
Hmm. I didn't really do anything else in March apart from a lot of TV and reading. Oh, I started a deck and walk in March, finally. So Sarah did me send me the book for my birthday, not last year, but the year before. So it has taken me a little while to catch up. But I got my Wild Way Oracle. Is that right?
Mhm.
Is that what it's
Yes.
called? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I got it
Mhm.
literally the week before the spring equinox, and I was
Oh,
like,
nice.
well,
Perfect.
now I have to. So so I've started that, and yeah, it's been interesting so far. I've got a few
Mhm,
different books and a couple of different decks that I'm
mhm.
using to do it with. I've got my Thoth deck out, which I have barely touched, so I thought it was a good excuse to get that out as well. And so far, it's been really interesting. I mean, we're only done the first 2 decans,
Mhm.
so there's a long way to go, but I'm having a good time. I got Marlena's, she has a book of spreads,
Mhm.
one for each decan that you can buy from her,
Mhm.
do you say, is it Ko-fi or Ko-fi, or how do you say
Kofi,
it?
I think.
Kofi.
Ko-fi?
Mhm.
And it's really cheap. Like
Yeah.
it's like $5.
Mhm.
And they're really good spreads. So I'm just gonna plug that for Marlena, because I think if you are doing a deck and walk or you're interested in one, it's definitely worth investing in. And I've been doing the spread each time as well. We get into a new deck, and so I'm having a really, really interesting experience with tarot again, which I think is what I needed, was something
Yeah.
new and fresh
Mhm.
to kind of inject that enthusiasm back into it.
So March was just kind of a rough month. So I got COVID, and so for the first couple weeks of March, I was trying to shake COVID. Like I literally tested positive, I think on February 28th. So it was
Mm.
like the first couple weeks of March that I was sick, and it was very mild, but I couldn't shake it, and then I ended up like having pneumonia and like having to go on antibiotics and all that kind of stuff, and like it. So I feel like I spent so much of March just being sick, which was annoying. Um, and so beyond that, like I just honestly didn't do a lot because,
Yeah.
there wasn't much beyond
Mm.
just trying to like get through life and you know l-
Recover. Yeah.
recover. Yeah, it was weird because it felt like a very very mild case of COVID, but then I guess I got an infection and I was having such a hard time shaking it, and I kept getting sick again, like over and over and over again. And it was so until that finally got addressed, I was having a real struggle month. So, but yeah, now I'm fine. So everything's good.
Okay. So yeah, March was kind of stressful work-wise, but otherwise low key. I did go to visit my parents, and so that was great. And then there's I've talked about this before. There's this event called the DC Flea, which is like you it's like a flea market of like vintage and bunch of like merch and other things that different vendors come and sell at this huge like expo center, and that happens like every few months, and Matt loves it, so
Mhm.
we decided to check that out. And I mean, really, that's it. I mean, I've hung out with friends, virtually and also offline. So that's nice. And it's a nice, distraction from the stress of life. So I
Mhm.
really appreciated that. So I think that is a wrap. Just a reminder that we do have a Three Girls, One Book, and we've actually decided on the date for that. So it will be Saturday, April 26th. Um, Same bat time, a different bat channel would be on Sarah's channel this time. So we'll send out a notification for that to remind you. Thanks so much for your time, and we will catch you very soon. Bye bye. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Three Girls, One Deck. Fuck me, Three Girls, One Month. Let's start over.
Let's
Okay.
start over.
Yeah.
We can start.
Just in case you didn't forgot to edit out the fuck me, that can go in the blooper reel though.
I was just thinking that. First blooper
Oh,
for our
God.
blooper reel that we kind of inadvertently promised everybody in
Oh,
our
yes.
live.